Welcome back to Audible Archives. I'm Rob, your host, and tonight, Hercule Poirot faces a glittering puzzle wrapped in deception and diamonds. When two identical jewels known as the Western Stars fall under threat, the famed detective must untangle vanity, fear, and clever deceit. This is The Adventure of the Western Star by Agatha Christie, a tale where brilliance hides behind every lie. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because in Poirot's world, every sparkle conceals a secret. I stood by the window of Poirot's apartment, gazing absently at the street below when something caught my eye. "That's odd," I murmured under my breath. "What is it, mon ami?" Poirot's calm voice drifted from the depths of his armchair. We reclined with that maddening serenity of his. "Observe," Poirot introduced, a young woman, elegantly dressed, fine hat, luxurious furs, strolling slowly down the street, scanning the houses as she passes. Behind her trail 3 men and a middle-aged woman, and now an errand boy joins them, pointing toward her, gesturing excitedly. What's the scene before us? Is she a criminal under watch, and they the detectives waiting to strike? Or are they the villains, closing in on an unsuspecting victim? What says the great detective? Poirot rose with a soft laugh. The great detective, mon ami, takes the simplest route. He looks for himself. He came to the window beside me, peered out for a moment, and then chuckled quietly. "My dear Hastings, as always, your imagination paints the world in drama and danger. That," he said, nodding toward the street, "is Miss Mary Marvel, the film star. Those shadows of hers are merely admirers, entranced by her fame. And en passant, she is perfectly aware of the attention." I couldn't help laughing. "So it's all clear at last. But you earn no points for that, Poirot. It was nothing more than simple recognition." "En verite," he replied, a gleam of triumph in his eyes. "And tell me, how many times have you seen Mary Marvel on the screen, mon cher?" I thought for a moment. "About a dozen times, perhaps." "And I once. Yet I recognize her immediately, and you do not." "She looks so different," I mumbled, feeling rather weak under his gaze. "Ah, sacre," Poirot burst out, throwing up his hands in mock despair. "Do you expect her to stroll through the streets of London wearing a cowboy hat? Or perhaps barefoot, with tumbled curls like an Irish colleen? Always you fix your eyes on the sensuals." He jabbed a finger toward me. "Have you learned nothing from the case of Valerie St. Clair, the dancer?" I gave a small shrug, more irritated than impressed. Poirot, seeing it, softened at once. "But take heart, mon ami," he said with a placid smile. "The world cannot hold more than one Hercule Poirot. I accept that with humility." I let out a short laugh. "You truly have the highest opinion of yourself of any man alive," I said, torn between exasperation and reluctant amusement. "What can one do?" Poirot replied, his eyes twinkling. "When one is unique, one knows it. And mon ami, others recognize it too, even if I am not mistaken, Miss Mary Marvel." "What?" I exclaimed, caught off guard. "Without a shadow of doubt," he said calmly. "She is on her way here." "How do you deduce that?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "Very simply. This street, it is not aristocratic, mon ami, and there is no fashionable doctor, no fashionable dentist. Still less is there a fashionable milliner. But there is a fashionable detective. Oui, my friend, it is true. I am become the mode. The dernier serai." One says to another, "Comment? You lost your gold pencil case? You must go to the little Belgian. He is too marvelous. Everyone goes. Correz." And they arrive, in flocks, mon ami, with problems of the most foolish. A bell rang below. What did I tell you? That is Miss Marvel. As usual, Poirot was right. After a short interval, the American film star was ushered in, and we rose to our feet. Mary Marvel was undoubtedly one of the most popular actresses on the screen. She had only lately arrived in England in company with her husband, Gregory B. Rolfe, also a film actor. Their marriage had taken place about a year ago in the States, and this was their first visit to England. They had been given a great reception. Everyone was prepared to go mad over Mary Marvel, her wonderful clothes, her furs, her jewels. Above all, one jewel, the great diamond, would have been nicknamed, to match its owner, the Western Star. Much, true and untrue, had been written about this famous stone, which was reported to be insured for the enormous sum of £50,000. All these details passed rapidly through my mind as I joined Poirot in greeting our fair client. Miss Marvel was small and slender, very fair and girlish, looking with the wide, innocent blue eyes of a child. Poirot drew forward a chair for her, and she commenced talking at once. "You'll probably think me terribly foolish, Monsieur Poirot," Miss Marvel began, her voice trembling just enough to betray her unease. "But Lord Cronshaw was telling me last night about how brilliantly you solved the mystery of his nephew's death, and I simply had to come. I dare say it's just a silly hoax. Gregory insists it is, but it's worrying me to death." She paused, catching her breath. Poirot gave her one of his warm, encouraging smiles. "Continue, madam. As yet, I am entirely in the dark." "It's these letters," she said at last, unclasping her handbag. From it, she drew 3 envelopes and placed them delicately into Poirot's hands. He examined them with his usual precision. Cheap paper, the name and address, printed, not written, very deliberate. He slit open one envelope and unfolded the paper within. I leaned over his shoulder, curious. The page bore only a single line, printed in the same careful block letters as the envelope. It read, "The great diamond, which is the left eye of the god, must return whence it came." The second letter was couched in precisely the same terms, but the third was more explicit. "You have been warned. You have not obeyed. Now the diamond will be taken from you. At the full moon, the 2 diamonds which are the left and right eye of the god shall return. So it is written." "The first letter I treated as a joke," explained Miss Marvel. "When I got the second, I began to wonder. The third one came yesterday, and it seemed to me that, after all, the matter might be more serious than I had imagined. I see they did not come by post, these letters." "No, they were left by hand, by a Chinaman. That is what frightens me." "Why?" "Because it was from a chink in San Francisco that Gregory bought the stone 3 years ago." "I see, madam, that you believe the diamond referred to be the Western Star," finished Miss Marvel. "That's so. At the time, Gregory remembers that there was some story attached to the stone, but the chink wasn't handing out any information. Gregory says he seemed just scared to death and in a mortal hurry to get rid of the thing. He only asked about 1/10 of its value. It was Greg's wedding present to me." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "The story seems of an almost unbelievable romanticism. And yet, who knows? I pray of you, Hastings, hand me my little almanac." I complied. "Voyons," said Poirot. "Turn the leaves. When is the day of full moon?" "Ah, Friday next. That is in 3 days' time." "Eh bien, madam, you seek my advice? I give it to you. This belle histoire may be a hoax, but it may not. Therefore I counsel you to place the diamond in my keeping until after Friday next. Then we can take what steps we please." A slight cloud passed over the actress's face, and she replied constrainedly, "I'm afraid that's impossible." "You have it with you, Hein?" Poirot was watching her narrowly. The girl hesitated a moment, then slipped her hand into the bosom of her gown, drawing out a long, thin chain. She leaned forward, unclosing her hand. In the palm, a stone of white fire, exquisitely set in platinum, lay and winked at us solemnly. Poirot drew in his breath with a long hiss. "Appetent," he murmured. "You permit, madam?" He took the jewel in his own hand and scrutinized it keenly, then restored it to her with a little bow. "A magnificent stone without a flaw. Ah, centenaires. And you carry it about with you, comme say?" No, I'm very careful really, Monsieur Poirot. As a rule, it's locked up in my jewel case and left in a hotel safe deposit. We're staying at the Magnificent, you know. I just brought it along today for you to see. And you will leave it with me, nay, see, Pa? You will be advised by Papa Poirot. Well, you see, it's this way, Monsieur Poirot. On Friday, we're going down to Yardley Chase to spend a few days with Lord and Lady Yardley. Her words stirred something faint and familiar in my memory, a whisper of old gossip, half forgotten. What was it? Ah, yes, years ago, Lord and Lady Yardley had traveled to America. The stories that followed were colorful, to say the least, whispers as Lordship's escapades, aided and abetted by certain charming lady friends. But there had been more to it, hadn't there? Some rumor linking Lady Yardley herself to a film star in California. Then, like a spark catching flame, it came back to me, of course. The name was Gregory B. Rolfe. I'll let you in on a little secret, Monsieur Poirot, Miss Marvel went on, leaning forward conspiratorially. We're working on a deal with Lord Yardley. There's a chance we may shoot a film down his estate, that grand ancestral pile of his. At Yardley Chase? I cried, interested. Why? It's one of the show places of England. Miss Marvel nodded. I guess it's the real old feudal stuff, all right. But he wants a pretty stiff price. Of course, I don't know yet whether the deal will go through. But Greg and I always like to combine business with pleasure. But I demand pardon if I am dense, madam. Surely it is possible to visit Yardley Chase without taking a diamond with you. A shrewd, hard look came into Miss Marvel's eyes, which belied their childlike appearance. She looked suddenly a good deal older. I won't wear it down there. Surely, I said suddenly, there are some very famous jewels in the Yardley collection, a large diamond amongst them? That's so, said Miss Marvel briefly. I heard Poirot murmur beneath his breath. Ah, say, come say. Then he said aloud, with his usual uncanny luck in hitting the bulls, aye. He dignifies it by the name of psychology. Then you are without doubt already acquainted with Lady Yardley. Or perhaps your husband is? Gregory knew her when she was out west 3 years ago, said Miss Marvel. She hesitated a moment, and then added abruptly, do either of you ever see society gossip? We both pleaded guilty rather shamefacedly. I asked, because in this week's number there's an article on famous jewels, and it's really very curious. She broke off. I rose, went to the table at the other side of the room, and returned with the paper in question in my hand. She took it from me, found the article, and began to read aloud. Among the world's most storied gems is a Star of the East, a diamond long held by the Yardley family. It was said that an ancestor of the present Lord Yardley brought it back from China, and with it, a legend wrapped in mystery. According to the tale, the gem once served as a right eye of a temple god. Its twin, identical in cut and brilliance, had been the left eye. Both were destined, so the prophecy claimed, to be stolen. One eye shall go west, the other east, until they meet once more. Then, in triumph, shall they return to the god. Curiously enough, there now exists a diamond strikingly similar in every detail. The so-called Star of the West, owned by none other than a renowned film actress, Miss Mary Marvel. A comparison of the two stones, one might say, would make for a most fascinating revelation. She stopped. Appetent, murmured Poirot. Without doubt a romance of the first water. He turned to Mary Marvel. And you are not afraid, madam? You have no superstitious terrors? You do not fear to introduce these two Siamese twins to each other lest a Chinaman should peer and, hey presto, whisk them both back to China? His tone was mocking, but I fancied that an undercurrent of seriousness lay beneath it. I don't believe that Lady Yardley's diamond is anything like as good a stone as mine, said Miss Marvel. Anyway, I'm going to see. What more Poirot would have said, I do not know, for at that moment the door flew open. A splendid-looking man strode into the room. From his crisply curling black head to the tips of his patent leather boots, he was a hero fit for romance. I said I'd call round for you, Mary, said Gregory Rolfe, and here I am. Well, what does Monsieur Poirot say to our little problem? Just one big hoax, same as I do. Poirot smiled up at the big actor. They made a ridiculous contrast. Hoax or no hoax, Mr. Rolfe, he said dryly. I have advised Madam your wife not to take the jewel with her to Yardley Chase on Friday. I'm with you there, sir. I've already said so to Mary. But there, she's a woman through and through, and I guess she can't bear think of another woman outshining her in the jewel line. What nonsense, Gregory, said Mary Marvel sharply, but she flushed angrily. Poirot shrugged his shoulders. Madam, I have advised. I can do no more. Say, Feeney." He bowed them both to the door. "Ah, la la," he observed, returning. "Hist water fams. The good husband, he hit the nail on the head, tout de mean. He was not tactful, assuredly not." I imparted to him my vague remembrances, and he nodded vigorously. So I thought, all the same, there's something curious underneath all this. With your permission, mon ami, I will take the air. Await my return, I beg of you. I shall not be long. I was half asleep in my chair when the landlady tapped on the door and put her head in. "It's another lady to see Mr. Poirot, sir. I've told her he was out, but she says as how she'll wait, seeing as she come up from the country." "Oh, show her in here, Mrs. Murchison. Perhaps I can do something for her." A moment later, the door opened and the lady was shown in. My pulse quickened. I knew that face at once. Lady Yardley's portrait had graced the society pages too many times to be mistaken. "Please, take a seat, Lady Yardley," I said, pulling a chair forward for her. "My friend Poirot was out the moment, but I'm certain he'll return very shortly." She inclined her head in thanks and sat gracefully. She was a striking contrast to Miss Mary Marvel, tall and dark, her eyes bright as polished jet, her face pale and proud. Yet there was a softness, a shadow of sadness about her mouth that caught me off guard. Something stirred within me, a sudden urge to rise to the moment. Why shouldn't I? In Poirot's company, I am often eclipsed, my own abilities overshadowed. But now, alone, I felt the spark of my own deductive instinct awaken. I leaned forward, compelled by impulse. "Lady Yardley," I said, "I know why you come here. You have received blackmailing letters about the diamond." There was no doubt as to my bolt having shot home. She stared at me open-mouthed, all color banished from her cheeks. "You know," she gasped. "How?" I smiled. "By a perfectly logical process. If Miss Marvel has had warning letters—" "Miss Marvel? She has been here?" "She has just left. As I was saying, if she, as a holder of one of the twin diamonds, has received mysterious series of warnings, you, as a holder of the other stone, must necessarily have done same. You see how simple it is? I am right, then you have received these strange communications also." For a moment she hesitated, as though in doubt whether to trust me or not. Then she bowed her head in assent with a little smile. "That is so," she acknowledged. "Were yours, too, left by hand by a Chinaman?" "No, they came by post, but—" "Tell me, has Miss Marvel undergone the same experience then?" I recounted to her the events of the morning. She listened attentively. "It all fits in. My letters are the duplicates of hers. It is true that they came by post, but there is a curious perfume impregnating them. Something in the nature of jar stick that at once suggested the ease to me. What does it all mean?" I shook my head. "That is what we must find out. You have the letters with you? We might learn something from the postmarks." "Unfortunately, I destroyed them. You understand, at the time I regarded it as some foolish joke. Can it be true that some Chinese gang are really trying to recover the diamonds? It seems too incredible." We went over facts again and again, but could get no further towards the elucidation of the mystery. At last Lady Yardley rose. "I really don't think I need wait for Monsieur Poirot. You can tell him all this, can't you?" "Thank you so much, Mr." She hesitated, her hand outstretched. "Captain Hastings." "Of course. How stupid of me. You're a friend of the Cavendishes, aren't you? It was Mary Cavendish who sent me to Monsieur Poirot. When Poirot finally returned, I took great satisfaction in recounting everything that had transpired during his absence." He listened intently, his sharp eyes narrowing as he began to cross, examine me on every minute detail. Beneath his polite curiosity, however, I sensed a touch of annoyance. He did not relish having missed the encounter. In truth, I suspected something more. It seemed to me that the dear fellow was just a little jealous. It had become something of a habit with him to gently mock my investigative instincts, treating my deductions as the fumblings of an enthusiastic amateur. Yet this time he found no flaw to seize upon, and that, I think, irked him more than he cared to admit. For my part, I was quietly rather proud of myself, though I took care not to show it. I knew too well how easily his vanity could be ruffled. Eccentric, vain, exasperating as he sometimes was, I remained genuinely fond of my curious little friend. "Bien," he exclaimed at last, a peculiar gleam in his eyes. "The plot thickens, does it not? Hand me that peerage from the top shelf, if you please." He flipped through the pages with brisk precision, murmuring as he read, "Ah, here we are. Yardley 10th Viscount, served in the South African War. Tout n'est pas d'importance. Married 1907, the Honorable Maud Stopperton. Fourth daughter, the 3rd Baron Cotterell issue. 2 daughters, born 1908 and 1910, Clove Residences." He snapped the book shut with a satisfied nod. "Voila, not much illumination there, but enough to begin. Tomorrow morning, my friend, we shall pay a visit to my lord himself." "What?" "Yes, I telegraphed to him. I thought you would wash your hands of the case. I am not acting for Miss Marvel, since she refuses to be guided by my advice. What I do now is for my own satisfaction, the satisfaction of Hercule Poirot. Decidedly, I must have a finger in this pie. And you calmly wire Lord Yardley to dash up to town just to suit your convenience. He won't be pleased. Au contraire, if I preserve for him his family diamond, he ought to be very grateful." "Then you really think there's a chance of it being stolen?" I asked eagerly. "Almost a certainty," replied Poirot placidly. "Everything points that way." "But how?" Poirot stopped my eager questions with an airy gesture of the hand. "Not now, I pray you. Let us not confuse the mind. And observe that peerage. How you have replaced them. See you not that the tallest books go in the top shelf, the next tallest in the row beneath, and so on. Thus we have order, method, which, as I've often told you, Hastings." "Exactly," I said hastily, and put the offending volume in its proper place. Lord Yardley proved to be a hearty, broad-shouldered man, the very image of the sporting English peer. His complexion was ruddy, his manner boisterous, but there was a genial warmth about him that made his bluntness almost charming, even if subtlety was clearly not a strong suit. "Extraordinary business, this Monsieur Poirot," he declared in his booming voice. "Can't make head or tail to myself. My wife's been getting some damn peculiar letters, and that Miss Marvel woman's had the same, apparently. What's the game here?" Poirot, unruffled as ever, handed him a neatly folded copy of Society Gossip. "First, my lord," he said with quiet emphasis, "I would ask if these statements are in essence true?" Lord Yardley took the paper, his good humor vanishing as his eyes ran down the page. By the time he reached the end, his face had darkened with unmistakable anger. "Damn nonsense," he spluttered. "There's never been any romantic story attaching to the diamond. It came from India originally, I believe. I never heard of all this Chinese god stuff. Still, the stone is known as the Star of the East." "Well, what if it is?" he demanded wrathfully. Poirot smiled a little, but made no direct reply. "What I would ask you to do, my lord, is to place yourself in my hands. If you do so unreservedly, I have great hopes of averting catastrophe." "Then you think there's actually something in these wild cat tales? Will you do as I ask you?" "Of course I will, but—" "Bien. Then permit that I ask you a few questions. This affair of Yardley Chase, is it, as you say, all fixed up between you and Mr. Rolfe?" "Oh, he told you about it, did he?" "No, there's nothing settled." He hesitated, the brick red color of his face deepening. "Might as well get the thing straight. I made rather an ass of myself in many ways, Monsieur Poirot, and I'm head over ears in debt, but I want to pull up. I'm fond of the kids, and I want to straighten things up and be able to live on at the old place. Gregory Rolfe is offering me big money, enough to set me on my feet again. I don't want to do it. I hate the thought of all that crowd play, acting round the chase, but I may have to, unless—" He broke off. Poirot eyed him keenly. "You have, then, another string to your bow? Permit that I may guess? It is to sell the Star of the East." Lord Yardley gave a brisk nod. "That's the size of it. The diamond's been in the family for generations, but it isn't entailed. Legally, I can sell if I wish. Trouble is, a stone like that isn't exactly easy to move. Hofburg, over in Hatton Garden. is try to snuff out a buyer, but he doesn't turn one up soon. The whole thing's a dead loss." Poirot inclined his head slightly. "One more question, permettez, which course does Lady Yardley favor?" The peer gave a short laugh. "Ah, she's dead set against selling it, of course. You know how women are sentimental about these things. She's all in for this film arrangement instead. Thinks it's so romantic, with some such nonsense." "I comprehend," said Poirot. He remained a moment or so in thought, then rose briskly to his feet. "You return the Yardley chase at once. Bien. Say no word to anyone mind, but expect us there this evening. We will arrive shortly after 5. "All right, but I don't see." "C'est n'est pas d'importance," said Poirot kindly. "You will that I preserve for you your diamond. N'est-ce pas?" "Yes, but—" "Then do as I say." A sadly bewildered nobleman left the room. It was 5:30 when we reached Yardley Chase. A solemn butler led us to great oak doors into the old panel hall, where a fire crackled and threw warm light across the walls. The scene before us might have been painted. Lady Yardley seated by the hearth, her dark, regal head bowed between the two fair-haired children beside her. Lord Yardley stood nearby, watching them with an indulgent smile that softened his ruddy features. "Monsieur Poirot and Captain Hastings," the butler intoned. Lady Yardley looked up sharply, surprise flickering across her face. Her husband stepped forward, hesitating, his eyes darting toward Poirot as though for guidance. But Poirot, immaculate as ever and perfectly composed, took command of the moment at once, as only he could. "All my excuses. It is that I investigate still this affair of Miss Marvel's. She comes to you on Friday, does she not? I make a little tour first to make sure that all is secure. Also, I want to ask Lady Yardley if she recollected at all the postmarks on the letter she received." Lady Yardley shook her head regretfully. "I'm afraid I don't. It is stupid of me. But, you see, I never dream of taking them seriously." "You'll stay the night?" said Lord Yardley. "Oh, my lord, I fear to incommode you. We have left our bags at the inn." "That's quite all right," said Lord Yardley quickly, seizing his cue. "We'll have them sent down at once." No trouble at all, I assure you." Poirot allowed himself to be persuaded and soon settled beside Lady Yardley, striking up a gentle conversation with the children. Within minutes, the great detective was laughing and playing as though he had known them all his life. And somehow, I found myself drawn into frolic as well. When at last a stern-faced nurse appeared to escort the little ones away, they went reluctantly, casting wistful glances back at their new playmate. "Vous êtes bonne mère," said Poirot softly, with one of his courtly little bows. Lady Yardley smoothed a stray lock of hair back into place. "I adore them," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. "And they adore you," Poirot replied, smiling, "with every good reason." A dressing gong sounded, and we rose to go up to our rooms. At that moment, the butler entered with a telegram on a salver, which he handed to Lord Yardley. The latter tore it open with a brief word of apology. As he read it, he stiffened visibly. With an ejaculation, he handed it to his wife. Then he glanced at my friend. "Just a minute, Monsieur Poirot. I feel you ought to know about this. It's from Hofburg. He thinks he's found a customer for the diamond, an American, sailing for the States tomorrow. They're sending down a chap tonight to vet the stone. By Jove, though, if this goes through..." Words failed him. Lady Yardley had turned away. She still held the telegram in her hand. "I wish you wouldn't sell it, George," she said in a low voice. "It's been in the family so long." She waited, as though for reply, but when none came her face hardened. She shrugged her shoulders. "I must go and dress. I suppose I'd better display the goods." She turned to Poirot with a slight grimace. "It's one of the most hideous necklaces that was ever designed. George has always promised to have the stones reset for me, but it's never been done." She left the room. Half an hour later, we three were assembled in the great drawing room awaiting the lady. It was already a few minutes past the dinner hour. Suddenly, a soft rustle stirred the air, and Lady Yardley appeared in the doorway, a vision of brilliance framed in light. She wore a long, white gown that shimmered with every movement, its sheen catching the flicker of the fire. Around her throat glittered a river of flame, the diamond necklace, alive with cold fire. "Behold the sacrifice," she declared gaily, her earlier irritation gone as if it had never been. "Just a moment. Let me turn on the big light, and you shall feast your eyes on the ugliest necklace in all England." The switches were just outside the door. As she stretched out her hand to them, the incredible thing happened. Suddenly, without any warning, every light was extinguished, the door banged, and from the other side came a long, drawn, piercing woman's scream. "My God!" cried Lord Yardley. That was Maud's voice. "What has happened?" We rushed blindly for the door, cannonading into each other in the darkness. It was some minutes before we could find it. What a sight met our eyes! Lady Yardley lay senseless on the marble floor, a crimson mark on her white throat where the necklace had been wrenched from her neck. As we bent over her, uncertain for the moment whether she were dead or alive, her eyelids opened. "The Chinaman," she whispered painfully. "The Chinaman, the side door." Lord Yardley leapt to his feet with a fierce oath, and I was right behind him, my pulse pounding. The Chinaman, again. The side door he'd spoken was a small one, tucked into the corner of the wall, scarcely a dozen yards from where the commotion had begun. As we reached it, my eyes caught a flash of light on the floor, and I cried out. There, just short of the threshold, lay the necklace, its diamonds glinting in the dim light, dropped no doubt in the thief's desperate flight. With a surge of triumph, I bent to snatch it up, and then froze. A second cry tore from my throat, and Lord Yardley echoed it beside me, for at the center of the necklace yawned an empty space. The Star of the East, the great diamond itself, was gone. That settles it. I breathed. These were no ordinary thieves. This one stone was all they wanted. But how did the fellow get in? Through this door. But it's always locked. I shook my head. It's not locked now. See. I pulled it open as I spoke. As I did so, something fluttered to the ground. I picked it up. It was a piece of silk. An embroidery was unmistakable. It had been torn from a Chinaman's robe. In his haste at calling the door, I explained, "Come, hurry. He cannot have gone far as yet." But in vain we hunted and searched. In the pitch darkness of night, the thief had found it easy to make his getaway. We returned reluctantly, and Lord Yardley sent off on footmen post. Haste to fetch the police. Lady Yardley, aptly ministered to by Poirot, who is as good as a woman in these matters, was sufficiently recovered to be able to tell her story. I was just about to switch on the other light, Lady Yardley said, her voice trembling, when someone sprang on me from behind. He wrenched a necklace from my throat, so violently that I was thrown to the floor. As I fell, I caught a glimpse of him fleeing to the side door, and I saw the pigtailed embroidered robe. He was a Chinaman. She stopped, shuddering at the memory. At that moment, the butler appeared quietly in the doorway. He leaned toward Lord Yardley and murmured something discreetly. "A gentleman from Mr. Hofburg's, Lord. He says you're expecting him." "Good heavens!" exclaimed Lord Yardley, still shaken. "I must see him, I suppose." "No, not here, Mullings, in the library." I drew Poirot aside. "Look here, my dear fellow, had we better get back to London?" "You think so, Hastings? Why?" "Well," I coughed delicately, "things haven't gone very well, have they? I mean, you tell Lord Yardley to place himself in her hands and all will be well, and then the diamond vanishes from under your very nose." "True," said Poirot, rather crestfallen. "It was not one of my most striking triumphs." This way of describing events almost caused me to smile, but I stuck to my guns. "So, having, pardon the expression, rather made a mess of things, don't you think it would be more graceful to leave immediately? And the dinner, the without doubt excellent dinner that the chef of Lord Yardley prepared?" "Oh, what's dinner?" I said impatiently. Poirot held up his hands in horror. "Mon Dieu. It is that in this country you treat the affairs gastronomic with a criminal indifference. There's another reason why we should get back to London as soon as possible," I continued. "What is that, my friend?" "The other diamond," I said, lowering my voice. "Miss Marvel's." Bien, what of it? Don't you see?" I burst out. irritation rising. His usual sharpness seemed dull tonight, a rare and baffling lapse. They've already taken one diamond. Naturally, they'll come for the other next. "Tiens!" exclaimed Poirot, stepping back with a gleam of mock astonishment. "But your brain, my friend, it marches magnificently. Imagine for a moment that I had not thought of that myself. Still, there is no need for alarm. The full moon, it does not come until Friday." I shook my head in exasperation. His moonlit theories did little to reassure me. But this time, I had my way. Within the hour, we were on the move, leaving behind a hastily written note of explanation and apology for Lord Yardley. My idea was to go at once to the Magnificent and relate to Miss Marvel what had occurred, but Poirot vetoed the plan and insisted that the morning would be time enough. I gave in rather grudgingly. In the morning, Poirot seemed strangely disinclined to stir out. I began to suspect that, having made a mistake to start with, he was singularly loath to proceed with the case. In answer to my persuasions, he pointed out, with admirable common sense, that as the details of the affair at Yardley Chase were already in the morning papers, Rolfe would know quite as much as we could tell them. I gave way unwillingly. Events proved my forebodings to be justified. About 2 o'clock, the telephone rang. Poirot answered it. He listened for some moments, then with a brief "Bien jai, Sarai," he rang off and turned to me. "What do you think, mon ami?" He looked half ashamed, half excited. "The diamond of Miss Marvel, it has been stolen." "What?" I cried, springing up. "And what about the full the moon now?" Poirot hung his head. "When did this happen?" "This morning, I understand." I shook my head sadly. "If only you had listened to me. You see, I was right." "It appears so, mon ami," said Poirot cautiously. "Appearances are deceptive, they say, but it certainly appears so." As we hurried in a taxi to the Magnificent, I puzzled out the true inwardness of the scheme. That "for the moon" idea was clever. The whole point of it was to get us to concentrate on the Friday, and so be off our guard beforehand. It is a pity you did not realize that. "My foi," said Poirot airily, his nonchalance quite restored after its brief eclipse. "One cannot think of everything." I felt sorry for him. He did so hate failure of any kind. "Cheer up," I said consolingly. "Better luck next time." At the Magnificent, we were ushered at once into the manager's office. Gregory Rolfe was there with 2 men from Scotland Yard. A pale-faced clerk sat opposite them. Rolfe nodded to us as we entered. "We're getting to the bottom of it," he said, "but it's almost unbelievable. How the guy had the nerve, I can't think." It took only a few minutes for us to piece together the sequence of events. Mr. Rolfe had left the hotel at precisely 11:15. Then, at 11:30, a man bearing an uncanny resemblance to him arrived. So similar, in fact, that no one thought to question it. The impostor approached the safe, deposit clerk, and requested the jewel case. He signed a receipt with easy confidence, laughing as he said, "Looks a bit different from my usual signature, doesn't it?" Hurt my hand getting out of the taxi. The clerk, unsuspecting, merely smiled. "Not much difference that I can see, sir." Rolfe chuckled. "Well then, don't have me arrested as an impostor this time," he joked. "I've been getting threatening letters from a Chinaman, and the worst of it is, I'm said to look like one myself. Something about the eyes." "I looked at him," said the clerk who was telling us this, "and I saw at once what he meant. The eyes slanted up at the corners like an Oriental's. I'd never noticed it before." "Darn it all, man," roared Gregory Rolfe, leaning forward. "Do you notice it now?" The man looked up at him and started. "No, sir," he said, "I can't say I do." And indeed there was nothing even remotely Oriental about the frank brown eyes that looked into ours. The Scotland Yard man grunted. Bold customer. Thought the eyes might be noticed, and took the bull by the horns to disarm suspicion. He must have watched you out of the hotel, sir, and nipped in as soon as you were well away. What about the jewel case? I asked. It was found in a corridor of the hotel. Only one thing had been taken, the Western Star. We stared at each other. The whole thing was so bizarre, so unreal. Poirot hopped briskly to his feet. "I have not been of much use, I fear." he said regretfully. Is it permitted to see Madam? I guess she's prostrated with the shock, explained Rolf. Then perhaps I might have a few words alone with you, monsieur? Certainly. In about 5 minutes, Poirot reappeared. Now, my friend, he said gaily, to a post office. I have to send a telegram. Who to? Lord Yardley, said Poirot quietly, cutting short any further questions by linking his arm through mine. Come, mon ami. I know exactly what you are thinking about this wretched affair. I have not covered myself in glory. That much is true. You, in my place, might have triumphed magnificently. Bien, I concede it all. Let us forget it and have lunch. It was close to 4 o'clock when we returned to Poirot's rooms. As we stepped inside, a figure rose abruptly from the chair by the window. It was Lord Yardley, pale, drawn, and visibly agitated. I got your telegram and came up at once, he said, voice tight with strain. I've just been to Hofburg's. They know nothing about that man who came last night, or the wire either. Do you think that? Poirot raised a hand, silencing him with a calm, commanding gesture. My excuses. I sent that wire and hired the gentleman in question. You... But why? What? The nobleman spluttered impotently. My little idea was to bring things to a head, explained Poirot placidly. Bring things to a head. Oh, my God, cried Lord Yardley. And the ruse succeeded, said Poirot cheerfully. Therefore, my lord, I have much pleasure in returning you this. With a dramatic gesture, he produced a glittering object. It was a great diamond. The Star of the East, gasped Lord Yardley. But I don't understand. No, said Poirot. It makes no matter. Believe me, it was necessary for the diamond to be stolen. I promise you that it should be preserved to you, and I have kept my word. You must permit me to keep my little secret. Convey, I beg of you, the assurances of my deepest respect to Lady Yardley, and tell her how pleased I am to be able to restore her jewel to her. What beau temps, is it not? Good day, my lord. And smiling and talking, the amazing little man conducted the bewildered nobleman to the door. He returned gently rubbing his hands. Poirot, I said, am I quite demented? No, mon ami, but you are as always in a mental fog. How did you get the diamond? From Mr. Rolf. Rolf. Mais oui, cried Poirot, his eyes gleaming with triumph. The warning letters, the mysterious Chinaman, the low oracle in society gossip, all the work of one man, the brilliant and audacious Mr. Rolf. The 2 diamonds, supposedly identical, bah, mere illusion. There was only ever one diamond, my friend. It began in a Yardley collection, and for the past 3 years, it has been in Rolf's possession. He stole it again this very morning. Aided by nothing more than a dab of grease paint at the corner of each eye. Mon Dieu, I must see him on the screen. What an artist, celui là. But why on earth should he steal his own diamond? I demanded, utterly bewildered. For many reasons, said Poirot smoothly, leaning back with satisfaction. To begin with, Lady Yardley was growing restless. Lady Yardley? I repeated, startled. You comprehend she was left much alone in California. Her husband was amusing himself elsewhere. Mr. Rolf was handsome, yet an air about him of romance. But, au fond, he is very business-like. See, monsieur? He made love to Lady Yardley, and then he blackmailed her. I taxed the lady with the truth the other night, and she admitted it. She swore that she had only been indiscreet, and I believe her. But undoubtedly, Rolf had letters of hers that could be twisted to bear a different interpretation. Terrified by the threat of a divorce and the prospect of being separated from her children, she agreed to all he wished. She had no money of her own, and she was forced to permit him to substitute a paste replica for the real stone. The coincidence of the date of the appearance of the Western Star struck me at once. All goes well. Lord Yardley prepares to arrange himself to settle down, and then comes a menace of the possible sale of the diamond. The substitution will be discovered. Without doubt, she writes off frantically to Gregory Rolf, who has just arrived in England. He soothes her by promising to arrange all, and prepares for a double robbery. In this way, he will quiet the lady, who might conceivably tell all to her husband, an affair which would not suit our blackmailer at all. He will have £50,000 insurance money. Ah, you've forgotten that. And he will still have the diamond. At this point, I put my finger in the pie. The arrival of a diamond expert is announced. Lady Yardley, as I felt sure she would, immediately arranges a robbery and does it very well too. But Hercule Poirot, he sees nothing but facts. What happens in actuality? The lady switches off the light, bangs the door, throws a necklace down the passage, and screams. She has already wrenched out the diamond with pliers upstairs, but we saw the necklace around her neck. I protested, still confused. "Ah, pardon me, my friend," Poirot said with a faint smile. Her hand cleverly concealed the very section where the gap would have been. A simple piece of silk in the doorway beforehand. Child's play. Naturally, when Rolf heard a supposed robbery, he staged his own little drama. And mon Dieu, how well he played it. What did you say to him? I asked, curiosity piqued. I told him that Lady Yardley had confided everything to her husband, that I was fully authorized to recover the jewel, and that, should it not be returned immediately, formal proceedings would follow. A few additional fibs occurred to me in the moment. He was as malleable as wax in my hands. I sat back, pondering the cleverness of it all. It seems a little unfair on Mary Marvel. She has lost her diamond through no fault of her own. Bah, said Poirot brutally. She has a magnificent advertisement. That is all she cares for, that one. Now the other, she is different. Bonne mère, très femme. Yes, I said doubtfully, hardly sharing Poirot's views on femininity. I suppose it was Rolf who sent her the duplicate letters. Pas du tout, said Poirot briskly. She came by the advice of Mary Cavendish to seek my aid in her dilemma. Then she heard that Mary Marvel, whom she knew to be her enemy, had been here, and she changed her mind, jumping at a pretext that you, my friend, offered her. A very few questions suffice to show me that you told her the letters, not she you. She jumped at the chance your words offered. I don't believe it, I cried, stung. CSI mon ami, Poirot exclaimed, shaking his head with gentle reproach. It is such a pity you do not study the psychology of women. She told you the letters have been destroyed? Ah la la, never. Never does a woman destroy a letter if she can avoid it, not even when prudence would dictate that she should. It's all very well, I said, my anger rising, but you've made a perfect fool of me, from beginning to end. No, it's all very well to try and explain away afterwards. There really is a limit. But you are so enjoying yourself, my friend. I had not the heart to shatter your illusions. It's no good. You got a bit too far this time. Mon Dieu, but how you vet yourself for nothing, mon ami. Poirot chided, his eyes twinkling with amusement. I'm fed up, I shouted, storming out and slamming the door behind me. Poirot had turned me into an absolute laughing stock. I decided he deserved a sharp lesson. Some time must pass before I would forgive him. After all, he had deliberately led me into making a perfect fool of myself. You've just heard The Adventure of the Western Star by Agatha Christie here on Audible Archives. Another mystery unraveled by the incomparable Hercule Poirot, proving once again that no secret, however dazzling, can escape his little grey cells. I'm Rob, your host, and if this tale of glamour and guile kept you guessing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More mysteries await, and the game is never truly over.